Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiang. With an unprecedented number of mail-in ballots, election results took a bit longer this year than usual. November stretched on into a month of election drama, with President Trump mounting an unprecedented effort to change election results. On Monday night, Trump tweeted, "I want to thank Emily Murphy at GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country. She has been harassed, threatened, and abused, and I do not want to see this happen to her, her family, or employees of GSA. Our case strongly continues. We will keep up the good fight, and I believe we will prevail nevertheless. In the best interest of our country, I'm recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols, and have told my team to do the same." It certainly was not a concession speech. No matter who will be inaugurated on January 20, one thing is certain: China is the most significant international threat that America faces. We know Trump's stance on China. Mr. Biden's real views on dealing with China are obscure because there was no foreign policy and defense debate in any substantial way. In light of China's responsibility for worsening the coronavirus pandemic by its concealment and disinformation, Beijing's disingenuousness has worsened the U.S. public opinion about China, a shift echoed worldwide potentially far more negatively than the adverse reactions to the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. The conventional thinking in the U.S. is that China's domestic economy is moving from strength to strength. It provides the Chinese Communist Party with the wherewithal to insist on China's dominant role in Asia and to challenge the U.S. globally. It is far from the truth. President Xi's domestic policy have rolled back many of the dramatic market-oriented reforms in favor of increased state control. The Xi's regime is impairing China's economic growth and laying the basis for failure internationally. Chinese Communist Party is weaker than it appears, and it is pushing forward grand strategic ambitions because of its internal weakness. Also, China's rise has not been peaceful and will not be peaceful despite Mr. Biden's dismiss China is not a threat. Since Mao Zedong, Chinese Communist Party used military force against its geographic neighbors. They are doing it today, from Taiwan, South China Sea to the China-India border. Domestically, CCP is engaging armed repression against ethnic minorities like Tibetan and Uyghurs, crushing dissent in Hong Kong, and initiating a social credit system so the state can rank all Chinese citizens in every aspect of their lives. Due to China's lack of transparency and non-existing freedom of press, a true China has always been a myth. I will touch base on China's economic myth today. In mid-October, China released its third quarter economic data, confirming that it was the first major economy to start growing again after the devastation caused by COVID-19 pandemic. China appeared to have achieved the V-shaped recovery. With the country largely virus-free, people could return to something like normal life in offices, schools, shops, and restaurants. And the government encouraged a splurge in investment across infrastructure and new manufacturing. Government data showed the third quarter enjoyed a growth of 4.9%, slightly lower than economists had expected, but still an astonishing achievement. Maro is the lead analyst on global trade at the Economic Intelligence Unit. He said the figures appeared to show a shuffling of some data to boost the overall GDP growth rate for the third quarter. Here I quote, "The Chinese Statistical Agency is opaque about their methodology, and unless we get more details about their adjustments, we'll never know the full story." But there does seem to be evidence of a targeted adjustment to help lift that headline figure. The September figures were smoothed by quietly altering the historic basis of comparison. Basically, some of the numbers from September 2019 were reapportioned into October of that year in order to lower the comparison base. That led to a statistical distortion where the September 2020 growth figures might have been artificially inflated." End quote. The manipulation suggested the economy might not be as strong as Beijing would have liked people to think. Leland Miller, chief executive of the China Beige Book Consultancy, which tracks the Chinese economy with data it collects itself, in addition to government statistics. Mr. Miller saw a far more disturbing alteration in the data. China recorded a growth of 0.8% in fixed asset investment for the first 3 quarters of the year, compared with 2019, but the absolute figures for the same period showed a drop of several trillion yuan. He said, I quote, "This is not toying at the margin. This is making 2.5 trillion yuan in fixed asset investment disappeared," he said. The only explanation given by Chinese authorities for the discrepancies was that the data had been adjusted to reflect, quote, "results of the 4th National Economic Census, statistical law enforcement, and the regulation of statistical programs," end quote. In other words, economists have no way to assess how accurate the revisions are or compare them to another data. If fixed asset investment had actually fallen as the raw data suggested, and in the same time the consumption was also down, overall GDP growth could be much lower than the headline figure. People think that China is back. Chinese government has done a good job, but in reality, China is not anywhere near being back to where they were before. The pandemic has pushed many Western companies to reconsider their dependence on Chinese factories. And Beijing has for several years called for a rebalancing of the economy to boost domestic consumption. It has struggled to make it a reality. Other long-term challenges, including debt and an aging population, have been overshadowed by coronavirus temporarily, but remain no less problematic. Even China is not the juggernaut. Even China is weaker than it appears. But that does not make its expansion any less of a threat. Chinese Communist Party has taken advantage of American complacency for many years. I hope the next president's China policy won't be misguided. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I will see you again shortly.